Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real, a podcast focused on the fascinating world of near-death experiences, spirit communication, and all things metaphysical and spiritual. The mission of this project is to share messages of hope and inspiration with others, and to spread the word that death is only an illusion. Thank you for being here with an open heart and mind. I wish you peace, light, and love always. Hello, Magic is Real listeners. Thank you so much for being here today. And also, thank you to my guest, Bill Vandenbush, who I am really looking forward to interviewing. I will tell you who he is, but first, I just have to say, welcome, Bill. Thank you so much for taking time to be here today.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for having me on.
I'm
Appreciate it.
thrilled to have you on. And I just appreciate, I was just telling you, you are a near-death experiencer, but you're also a speaker and an author. And I know you have told your story so many times. And so I give you an extra thanks for showing up and being willing to share again. Bill is a Vietnam veteran. He's also worked uh, for veteran services, and you can elaborate on that when we tell your story.
Sure.
But you have a remarkable story. You've actually had 3 near-death experiences, which we will talk about.
Yes.
And really, we can start from wherever you prefer, but I always like to go back to who you were when you were a little kid, because I think that really informs your experience when you have a spiritually transformative experience. And I know that from having read your bio that you always had some awareness of something greater, but you can start from wherever you like in your life to just set the scene for what was going
Okay.
on and who you thought you were back before this all happened to you.
Well, back when I was a little kid, I always had some curiosity about life. Um, I had curiosity about religious and spiritual things, although I got very disillusioned with religion very early on, like around 6 or 7 years old. And so as I grew older, of course, I was just open-minded. I didn't really go looking for uh, any kind of unusual experiences, or I kind of knew what a near-death. I didn't really know what a near-death experience was. I'd actually never heard that term, but I knew what like astral projection was, and things like that. But when I was 18, right after high school, I decided to join the army, and it was I was kind of driven by some kind of external force that I didn't really understand at all. To do this, it was like what I was supposed to do, even though it was crazy. This was 1968, the height of the Vietnam War, and I joined the army and volunteered to be an infantry soldier and go to Vietnam. And that was just kind of crazy in itself.
Yeah.
But I went through training. I did fairly well. I was a good soldier. I actually liked the army to a certain degree, um, as much as somebody in that position can.
Yeah.
And I liked the camaraderie. I liked the teamwork. I liked the feeling of working hard and the thought of defending my country. And also there was this kind of a male rite of passage. When a boy joins the military, he becomes a man, um, which is total BS, by the way. But
It seems that way when you're
I
18.
I
Yeah.
didn't know at that time. It
No.
seemed like it to me that this was a great chance to grow up and be an adult. And So, because I had volunteered to go to Vietnam, of course, they sent me right through training and sent me right off to Vietnam. Um, I kind of knew that it was okay to go, but I was afraid at the same time because I knew that it was dangerous, that the chances of coming back were slim. Um, and especially in 1968, I mean, this was, we were losing a lot of soldiers at that time. Excuse me, I need to reset my headphones a little here.
Yeah.
It's it's warm in here and starting to sweat and slide off.
I I'm a voice
Uh,
actor. I understand the feeling. Yeah.
anyway, we uh, so I went to Vietnam and I immediately sensed that there was a lot of death and dying there, a lot of fear. In fact, when I first got off the airplane in Vietnam, it was hot and muggy. It was about uh, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It was dark out. Um, and we were at this little place. It was just like a little overhead shelter. There were some chairs, and the sergeant came out and was talking to us and telling us to take a seat. And he described basically what was going to happen, what we were going to do, where we were going to go, what would happen when our name was called. We'd get on a bus, and that in itself was frightening. Just thinking about
Yeah.
getting on a bus and riding through the countryside, in the middle of this war zone. Um, and I looked out behind this shelter and I saw these crates of, they were just big silver tubes inside the crates. The side of the crates were kind of open and you could see these tubes in there. And I went to the sergeant and I said, "What's in those tubes back there?" And he says, "Oh, dead bodies." Well, I mean, there were thousands of them piled up back there. I mean, that just scared the heck out of me.
I'm asking you this as apart from your whole NDE story and being so privileged just to never having in my lifetime ever had to experience anything like that. You said that, when you signed up, you knew that there was a chance you wouldn't come back. And I wonder what it is inside of you that allows you to go anyway with that to feel the fear and do it anyway. I mean, we're so spoiled. I can only imagine I'd have a meltdown the minute I got there. But what was it that gave you that the courage to feel the fear and still be there? I'm just curious.
Well, it was my choice to be there.
Yeah.
And I'd gone through all the Army training, which is pretty good, actually. I felt fairly confident that I could handle combat. Still scared, but as it turned out, those silver tubes didn't have bodies in them. They had bombs in them, which is probably just as bad.
Right.
Uh, but
Either way, it's terrifying.
yeah, but that was my kind of my first frightening experience. I went through, month after month, being in the field as an infantry soldier and being shot at, seeing people killed, seeing a lot of death and dying. I was part of a reactionary force, so we probably saw maybe 30 to 40% more combat than most of the other troops. So I saw a lot more of that, the death, not just on our side, but on both sides. And I always wondered what it would be like to be shot or to die. That thought crosses your mind. Um, there's always fear, tremendous fear, just unbelievable fear that racks you on a daily basis. But you work through it. you realize that you're there, that you have to do this, and you just move through it. You do what you have to do in spite of the fear. And it's not easy. Sometimes the fear is paralyzing, but you realize that that it's just as dangerous not to act and do the right thing as it is to be frozen with fear. So I went through my months of combat in Vietnam, and I was reaching the end of my tour, and I had made friends with two guys, John and Hank, and we were like just brothers, closer than brothers. Um, and we always said that as long as the three of us were together, we could cover each other's back. That, even if we were in different squads or not necessarily working directly together, we were just kind of there emotionally for each other. Well, on this particular day, John and Hank went on R&R. Um, and so they were gone off to Thailand for a week or so. And I was left to uh, lead a squad of men. But we were headed back to the rear area. So I thought, this will be fine. No problem. And about, maybe a couple hours after they were gone, the company commander called me and a few other guys and said, look, there's a helicopter shot down. We need you to bring your squad. We're going to take volunteers and see if we can go get them, which was standard. I mean, that was our job. It was not out of the norm to do that. So I said, sure, my squad would go. I had a good squad. They were well trained, they were experienced. I knew that we could handle the job. So they loaded us up on helicopters. And as soon as we got to the area where this helicopter had been shot down, there was a lot of incoming fire. I mean, it was coming from all around. And the helicopters just kind of swooped in and dropped us off. They didn't even really stop. We had to just jump out as they came close to the ground. And as soon as I got out of that helicopter, I thought, something's wrong here. I feel uncomfortable. I've done this 100 times before, but this is different. Something was odd, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. So we were taking heavy fire, so I instructed my squad to move forward, and I got a signal from the company commander because we didn't have a radio or a medic with us. And he signaled us to move around the base of the hill. And he said he was going to take his group the other direction. And basically, we would surround the enemy and the down helicopter and just kind of push in until we could provide security. And so I thought that's okay, but we were taking very heavy fire. So I instructed my men to go forward and get down behind the bushes, get low. We were in a dried up rice paddy with dikes all around and tall bushes, hedgerows. And I stayed back a little bit, kind of in a little indentation in the ground, so I could have a better field of vision and see where the fire was coming from. And I would tell my men where to shoot and when to shoot. And all of a sudden, I heard jet planes coming over. And I realized that the company commander must have been pinned down just like we were and called in an airstrike. And I thought, oh, this isn't good. And I watched them fly over. They dropped their bombs on top of the hill. And it's scary. I mean, you feel the heat. You kind of hear the shrapnel zinging overhead. And it's very frightening. And I thought to myself, if they drop those bombs just a little too early, they're going to come right down on my position. And sure enough, the next pass around, they dropped the bombs early, and I watched them come down and landed right on my position. Um, I was hit in the face by a big piece of shrapnel that crushed the right side of my face, tore my right eye out. I had shrapnel all down my right side. I was bleeding profusely. And there I was. I was now 19 years old. I had turned 19 not long before this. And I thought, this is it. This is the end. This is the end of my life. And, there's so many things I haven't done. Um, I didn't really have what people call a life review. Maybe because I didn't have much life prior to that to review. But I thought about, I had never had a relationship with a woman. I had never had, um, I just never had so many things in my life. I'd worked, I'd had jobs, I had a family, but we didn't really get along real well. And I'm thinking that this is it. I'm going to die right here. And suddenly I'm in this dark place, very quiet, peaceful. Suddenly there's no more pain. I'm still wounded, but I'm kind of gliding upward in this darkness. And I come out in this beautiful, bright, white light. I mean, it was just absolutely magnificent. And I thought, this is like where I want to be forever. This is heaven, obviously. And I was not afraid. I felt no fear, no concern, no worry. And I was there. I was just in awe of this beautiful place. And I saw this ball of light coming towards me. And when it arrived, I realized it was my grandfather, who had died several years prior to this. And he just kind of comforted me and said, everything's going to be okay. Just hang in there, and I'm going to show you around and show you the ropes. And I have to tell you that when I think I was about 12, my grandfather taught me to drink whiskey and chew tobacco. So trusting him was maybe a little difficult, but I knew at least that I was in familiar hands and that things would be okay. And then as we moved forward into this bright white light, and I could just sense the peace and the calm and the beauty, and it was like I was all knowing, but not academically all knowing, just universally all knowing, just a sense that there's all this knowledge in the universe that I now have inside me. And I was glowing like this ball of light that my grandfather was. And suddenly another ball of light joined us. And this was obviously a person of authority. Um, I don't like to say it was God or Jesus or, any kind of deity, because I don't know. I'm not sure those people even exist there. But uh, it spoke to me, it communicated with me telepathically, not in words, and told me that I would have to go back, that this was not the place for me right now, that I would have a full life, that I would be uh, successful and would live a long life, and that I would have a purpose. In fact, as I learned later, there were many purposes that I had to fulfill. And I was I had just had a sense of awe just of being in this place, being surrounded by this energy that was there and this being that was communicating with me. And it made me feel quite comfortable. And so this being said, it's time for you to go. And like a good soldier, I turned and went the other way. And then I was in the dark tunnel again. And I was kind of moving downward, just kind of gliding. But this time I was surrounded by this white light and I was peaceful and calm. And then I came back awake on the battlefield and I could hear the shooting and people screaming and I I was not frightened at all. I was very comfortable. I knew that I wasn't going to die that day. This entity in the white light assured me that no matter what happens on this day, I won't die, and that I would go on to lead a long and productive life. So that gave me some comfort. And one of my men came crawling over to me, and he'd been shot um, very badly. And I knew that he was going to go where I just came from. And I held him in my arms and I looked at him and he died and his spirit rose up out of him. It was like gray, very light gray smoke or fog that rose up out of him, just a little bit, not a lot of it. And I just told him, you're going to a wonderful place and just to relax and let it happen.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so after he died, I laid him down and I covered him up. And I told my men that I would go get help because they were still pinned down and taking fire. And as I started to get up off the ground, even though I was very, very badly wounded, I started getting up off the ground and this sniper came out of the bushes and opened up on full automatic and shot me 5 times. I saw the bullets come out of the gun in slow motion. I felt them going into my body. They went into my upper arm, into my chest, and through my neck. And I saw the blood splatter, and I felt no pain and no worry and no concern. But I could feel that the bullets went in me, and I knew that it was very bad. And I was having trouble breathing because the bullets had torn my throat open. And I stood up with my rifle and I fired back at that soldier that had just shot me. And he just kind of ran off, I think. I don't know if I hit him or not, but I'm sure I scared the heck out of him because here I was already badly wounded. And he shoots me 5 times and all in the upper body. And I get up and shoot back. I mean, this has to be frightening for him.
Yeah.
So I I couldn't speak, so I couldn't tell my men I was going to go for help. But I started to walk back to where I thought the rest of the company was, and to get help, and to um, also to kind of take care of myself. I started bandaging myself and covering my wounds. I had to concentrate on drawing air through the holes in my neck and down into my lungs and kind of stop the blood from filling my lungs up. And I had to think about everything. And it was amazing because I still had this white light all around me. I still felt the presence of this energy, this white light energy, this place that I had been to. And I had no fear, no worry, no concern because I knew that I wasn't going to die. And I could see, I was like out of my body, looking at myself. I could see 360 degrees all around me. Um, and I was able to walk straight through these hedgerows, just walk right through them. I mean, they were very dense. This is not, you didn't just walk through. So I walked through them and I came out where the medics were. And when they ran over and put their hands on me, I immediately went back into my body and I just let go and I relaxed and let them work on me. I could hear that they were in a panic because, they were hollering, watch out for that arm because my arm was almost ripped completely off. And they said, we had to get an airway started. And they were just yelling a bunch of different things. And finally, they loaded me on a stretcher and took me to a field hospital. And I spent about a month in a hospital in Vietnam before I was stable enough to be transported to Japan, where I got more surgery. I went through some more terrifying experiences. I got malaria when I got there.
Oh my God.
And so here I was, all badly wounded. My wounds were still wide open because they were so big they couldn't close them. They had to kind of let things heal from the inside out. And so I had all these gaping wounds and had malaria on top of it.
And now you have to add insult to injury. Now you have malaria. Oh my
Yes.
God.
So that got the wounds infected.
Oh
And
my God.
once again, I was struggling, but I knew I wasn't going to die. And right after the malaria had kind of calmed down and I was stable again, a nurse came to me one evening and they had just wheeled this guy in, put him in a bed across from me. And she said, in the morning, can you go over and talk to this guy? He has very similar wounds to you. And she said, I think it would help him if, you could just be with him for a little while. And I said, yeah, I'd be okay. Of course, I couldn't speak. So I was sign language. I was writing notes and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But, excuse me, uh, I was kind of looking forward to helping this person. I've always been a helper, and I'm an oldest child, so I'm a caregiver. you know. And I woke up in the morning and he wasn't in his bed, and I thought, oh, they must have taken him to surgery or something, or down to the lab or something. And I waited for a while, and the nurse came around, and I said, well, where's that guy in the other bed? And she said, oh, I'm sorry. He passed away last night. And I thought, he had similar wounds to mine, and he didn't even make it through the night. And here I am, I'm still here, all these wounds, and I've had malaria, and I've had a few other complications, and I'm still here, still functioning. And it was miraculous. Um, Even though I don't really believe in miracles, I believe in science, but I think science can create miracles.
Yeah.
So, um, but so I went many months of recovery, actually many years. Um, I was in the military hospital for about 6 more months after they shipped me home, and then they discharged me from the military. And they were very nice to me. They actually, at age 19, they gave me a full retirement from the
They
military
better. Yeah. I should
and
hope so.
sent me to a VA hospital. And I spent about another year in the VA hospital, but I was kind of getting fed up with all the medical care and the negativity. The doctors were very negative. Well, you're never going to speak again. We're going to cut off your left arm because it's just going to hang there. It's going to be useless. We can give you a prosthesis that'll be better. Um, they said we're going to put in a permanent trach tube so that you can breathe. And I thought, I don't want all that.
Like, can I go back to where I just came
Sure.
from? It'd be a lot
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah.
Way easier. But I finally just got fed up with it all. And I went into my doctor's office and I said, "What happens if I take this tube out of my neck?" He looked at me, "You die." And I thought, hey, I've heard that before.
Mhm.
and so I took the tube out and laid it on his desk.
You did.
And I put my finger over the hole so I could make a whispering sound. And I said, "Goodbye, I'm going home to die." And I left. I walked out of the hospital. Obviously, I didn't die.
Right.
But now there was kind of a fake out there because, like I said, I believe in science. So I went down and I read all the medical books that I could read about throat injuries and injuries to the larynx and such. And what I learned is when you take the trach tube out, they don't even need to sew up the holes. They just close automatically. The muscles kind of close down and it seals up. It takes a couple days, but then it just heals up on its own. So I already had a little knowledge of what probably would happen. The doctor didn't think I was that smart, but I was.
Mhm.
And so I left and I went home. And I did go back to the VA hospital for plastic surgery and an artificial eye. I had my face rebuilt with cartilage from the UCLA Cartilage Bank, and they made me a plastic eye,
Your
artificial
face look
eye.
you would never know. They did a
They
great job.
did a great job. It was a young plastic surgeon, fresh out of school, a really smart kid, and he took me on as a special project. And he did I think, about 4 or 5 different surgeries on my face, and rebuilding and reconstructing and
Amazing.
adding skin and muscle and all kinds of stuff in there. And so, after this was actually about a year or so after I'd been out, after I'd left the hospital, that this all happened. And I went home, I went to college, got married, just kind of moved on with life. But I always thought about the white light. I always thought, it's always with me pretty much.
Yeah.
It has gotten me everything that I'd done up to that point was a result of being in that white light.
Yeah.
I've had comments on my book when I tell the story. They say, "Well, how come you don't talk more about the actual near death experience?" Well, I'm still going through it. I'm still in it. It's every day. It doesn't just go away.
Oh,
It
I
wasn't
love that.
just those few moments. It's every day. I experience that experience every day. I live it. I don't have to keep talking about what happened out there in the white light because it's happening here.
That's the cool that's such a unique thing
And,
that you just said. I love that. Also, can you just
and
quickly name the name of your book? Because there's going to be a link, but I just
oh,
wanna yeah, I just
the book is called "If Morning Never Comes"
which is
by
a beautiful
Bill
title.
Vandenbush,
Beautiful.
and uh, the second edition is out. Been out for
Good.
about 5 or 6 years, I think. And the first edition came out in 2003, and then we republished in 2016.
And it has
So
great reviews, by
has
the
good
way.
reviews, yeah.
Yes.
Um, it gets a lot of attention when I go out, and people that have read it really enjoy it. I'm amazed that I always get different people interpret it differently, but it's not. I'm not unhappy with the way they interpret it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of the way I want it. I wanted it to appeal to a large audience, and it does. Um, so anyway, I kind of went on with my life, and um, I I I started to let go of the near death experience a little bit. Not um, I kind of stopped following that path. I stopped letting it lead me, and I tried to lead it to go where I thought it wanted to go, where I thought it should go, where I wanted to go, but not
As we humans
necessarily,
do.
yeah,
We do that.
but not necessarily where that white light wanted me to go, that energy, the spirit. So, um, I, uh, I got divorced and went through some difficult times, and um, I was working in an automotive research lab. Um, I had my own business, an automotive shop, and but what I really wanted to do was be a psychologist. But everybody told me, "Well, you can't talk. How are you going to be a psychologist?"
Right.
And then I listened to them, which was my big mistake.
Yeah.
And I went another direction. Went to the automotive field because that had been a hobby of mine, and I was good at it. And then I went to work for this research company, and they transferred me from Los Angeles to Seattle, Washington. Now, I'd been in Seattle when I was in the Army because I got training at Fort Lewis, Washington. Um, if you're not familiar with the West Coast, uh, quite a distance between Seattle and Los Angeles, almost as far as from Seattle to the East Coast.
Yeah.
But um, and it was different, but I liked it here. I felt at home when I got here, and so my job was good. I liked my job, but they found out they could hire people a lot cheaper up here than out of Los Angeles. We were making good wages there, and people up here, the economy was a little less, cost of living was less, so the pay was less. And so I got laid off my job, and I began to realize that I think this is part of my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
What's happening to me is part of my spiritual journey, my journey from the light back through life and eventually back to the light, which I haven't gone there finally, but
Right. Right. I do have a question before you
sure.
even though I'm loving the way that it's unfolding. Most people come back from war severely traumatized. And I wonder, were you experiencing signs of trauma, and I imagine there'd be some, did
Mhm.
that experience of the white light soften that at all? Does it make any difference whether you've had a near death experience or not? And I think I'll just put it this way. One of my friends from childhood, um, I went to school with her, is a war journalist, Lindsay Adario, actually. And she's done a lot of, she's an incredible photojournalist, and she's written a book, which is one of the best books out there. I think it's called It's What I Do. And
Yeah,
I went and saw her speak when she came to visit LA. And she said, people keep asking me, but how do you not have PTSD? She's been abducted 3 times by the Taliban. She's witnessed horrific things, but she keeps going back. And she said, I don't know why I don't. So what I was going to say is not everybody will develop proper PTSD. It has a lot to do with your own brain, how it works,
right,
the
right.
neurotransmitters. Not everyone will actually develop PTSD from trauma, but you know what I'm asking. What was
Yeah.
yeah, how were you
The,
coping? And
well,
did the
the
light
near
sort of
death
help you?
experience helped to a certain degree. Um, but I had had uh, bad dreams about the war, frightening dreams. Um, and I got involved with uh, the VA and some of their counseling programs, and went through it, which actually turned out to be part of my journey. Turned out there was more to going and getting counseling than just going and getting counseling and feeling better about myself. The first group I went to at a little vet center in Seattle, and I went through the group. I participated fully, and at the end of the group, the leader of the group said, "Hey, how'd you like to be my co-leader next time? You really did good at this. You seem to have a kind of a natural affinity for this." And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." So a few weeks later, I show up. All the guys are there for the group. I'm there, and I'm now the co-leader, and I'm wondering what the heck it is I'm supposed to do because I had no idea what to do. And I had no training or other than my going through the group once. Um, and the secretary came in and said, "Bill, you have to run the group. The leader is gone and he's not going to be able to do it." And I thought, oh my God, here I am. So uh, I'm generally pretty resourceful. So I did what I knew that the first group is, which is introductions and, get everybody's name and try to figure out why they're there. And then I went home and I started reading and studying about post-traumatic stress disorder. And I just stayed about a week or two ahead of the group, as far as how much I knew and what they were going to do. And I made it through the 16-week program as the leader. And that kind of eventually led to my going back to school. Um, I had a degree in automotive technology and uh, industrial education. Um, but I needed to go back to school. So I went back to school and got a degree in psychology and sociology, and eventually a master's degree in social work. And I was working at the VA hospital through a series of uh, what I like to call guided experiences, because no matter what I said or did, it didn't seem to make any difference. That always went in my favor. In fact, I went to this guy who I wanted to talk to him about uh, going back to school and getting some education, having the VA pay for it. And he said, uh, no, that probably won't work. And I hollered obscenities at him and called his mother bad names. And, you know,
Not
uh,
you, Bill. I
I,
can't imagine it.
I did. I was furious. And when I was all done with my tirade, he looked at me, he said, have you ever thought about being a counselor? And I thought, well, where the heck did that come from? I
Yeah.
come to you, I've got all this experience in the auto industry. I just chewed you up one side and down the other. And you say, you ever think about being a counselor? And I thought, okay, I'll go with it. And I said, sure. And the next thing I know, I got a job as a counselor. I have no experience. All the people that applied for the job were experienced, had degrees in psychology and sociology, and I had not just my automotive experience. And uh, it just grew from there. I just kept applying for different jobs, and eventually I went to work at the VA hospital uh, and finished my master's in social work. And I worked for the VA for about 20 years. Um, I enjoyed the work. I worked with people who have severe mental illness and substance abuse problems. I also, well, I was also a PTSD specialist for the first part of my career there. And then I switched over to dual disorders. But it'd been about 20 years since my near death experience. And I had never really talked about it. I'd actually had another near death experience when I was in this process of changing careers, where in the book I talk about the Avon lady, and I was kind of down and depressed because I was, I had lost my job and I couldn't find another job, and I didn't know where to go or what to do. And I was sitting in my little apartment, and I heard a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and there's this little lady standing there, probably, I don't know, in her 50s, which seemed old to me.
Yeah.
And um, she just looked at me and she said, Avon calling. And
She actually, is that what they actually
oh,
say?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
the script. I never, yeah, that's
yeah.
funny.
And so she asked if she could come in, and I said, sure. And so
That
she
was so
started
nice of you.
showing me all these different men's colognes and their whole new line of men's toiletries. And I was just not very thrilled with it all.
You are so
And
sweet to let her in. I actually
so
I let the Jehovah's Witnesses in once when I was in college.
don't do
I,
that ever again.
I no, I'll never do it again.
But yeah, I let her in and we talked, and I mean she was really nice.
Of course.
And I was amazed that she even came in with me. I mean, I was
Yeah,
looking
you're you
pretty
wouldn't do that
ragged.
these days.
No,
No.
and she obviously noticed that I was, kind of depressed and down, and my place was a little messy, um, and she said, our church has a singles group that we go on these retreats, and we're going to have a retreat next week. And we go up in the mountains, this wonderful place, and we talk about the Bible and Jesus. And I thought, oh crap, that's the last thing I want to talk about,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and so she kind of went on, and I'm kind of looking for a way out, a way to say, well, no, I can't do that. And so she says, well, it costs $20 to go. And I thought, there's my
What a
out.
bargain.
I don't have 20
Right.
bucks. I told her, well, I would love to go. It sounds wonderful, but I don't have the 20 bucks. So I'll see you later. You know, get the hell out of my house. And
Yeah.
she looks at me and she says, well, my husband and I offer scholarships to people who
Oh,
can't afford it. And I thought, oh man, I just can't catch a
there's
break
no
here.
getting out of this.
So I said, okay, I'll
Pack your
go.
bags.
I'll go, and I'm starting to learn that the spirit speaks in different ways. And this was probably something I just needed to do, even though I didn't want to. And so uh, that weekend, I took my bag and got on the bus at the church, which was up the street. And I was probably one of the older people there. It was mostly younger people. So I didn't have much in common with them. And I wasn't a churchgoer. I've never been a churchgoer for a variety of reasons. And so it was just kind of awkward. And so I got there, and the place was just gorgeous. I mean, it's way up in the mountains. It was all these little cabins, and it was just spectacular. And they served up this just wonderful dinner. And after dinner, I went, climbed in bed, and thought I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. And I woke up the next morning very early, and it was so beautiful outside that rather than go to the Bible study, I decided to go for a walk. And I went walking up this road or path, and I kept on walking, and I came to this just beautiful meadow, this gorgeous place, greens, wildflowers, trees, and there was a down tree, a log sitting on the ground. And I went over and sat on the log, and the morning mist was just rising in the meadow. I mean, it was
What a dream.
just an incredible picture. And then these three deer come walking out into the meadow. And I thought, oh, can this get any better? You know? And all of a sudden, I'm back in the white light. I'm sitting there in this beautiful place, and I'm back in the white light. And I'm being told that I need to make changes in my life, that I need to accept certain things. Um, and I need to listen for the word from my spirit, to follow my spirit, to get off the pity pot, take some chances and risks, and uh, that everything was going to be all right. I just needed to make some changes. And I thought, okay, I can do this. And I suddenly I was back on the log in the meadow, and the deer were out there. And so I sat there for a while and walked back up to the the camp and the lodge that was there. And everybody was just finishing Bible study, thank God. And so I didn't have to go through that. And I had something to eat, and I just kind of hung around the rest of the weekend, got to know a few people, took the bus ride home. Excuse me. Took that bus ride home and thought, okay, I have to make changes. The spirit said, make changes. And it kind of said, you have a purpose to fulfill. And I began to see what that purpose was, and that it was actually a multifold purpose. The first part of the purpose was to heal myself, not just physically, which was a huge chore, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing. I had to come to grips with everything that had happened up to that point. And then the when had my first near death experience, there was something said to me that I didn't understand, and it was talk to the people. I didn't understand that at all at the time. So after the second one, the same message came afterwards. Talk to the people. And I'm thinking, well, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
Talk to the people. Okay. I talk to people all the time. But, and my first thought was, all right, big guy, you want me to talk to the people? Why did you take my voice away?
Yeah.
Why'd you shoot me through the neck and make it so I can't talk?
Hmm.
So I did. I could talk by this time. Not real well, but fairly well. I had taught myself
I
how to
was going to ask
speak.
if you did voice therapy or,
Yeah, it took
yeah.
me about 10 years. I did go to a speech therapist who basically said, oh, there's no hope for you because you don't have any vocal cords. And I don't. I've had it checked many times.
How do you that I'm so fascinated because I've gone through a vocal disorder. I have muscle tension dysphonia and I've been through years of voice therapy and struggles with my voice, having been a voice actor. So I know a lot about this, and I'm just veering off on a different because that's so
Go
interesting
ahead.
to me
Yeah.
that you can
It's your
speak of.
show. You
Yeah,
can do what you want.
how yeah, I just was curious about how the mechanism works, but I mean, you don't have to go all into it, but it's
Yeah.
fascinating. What
Well,
muscles are you using?
it took a long time. And what it was practicing forcing air up past the scar tissue
Right.
to make sounds. So I practiced making sounds first. And then, of course, the way we speak is by manipulating those sounds or vibrations with our mouth.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to make the sounds, which was hard to do,
Yeah.
and then manipulate them with my mouth to make words.
It's
And
incredible.
I practice, still practice to this day.
That's incredible. You're it's I mean, there's a little hoarseness, but you can't the fact that you can speak so well because I had to overcompensate because my vocal cords were
Yeah.
spastic and I had vocal cord dysfunction, which then the more I strained to try to manipulate the muscles to do what I wanted to do, then I ended up with muscle tension dysphonia. So
Uh,
I'm just fascinated by the whole mechanism. Thank you for sharing that.
oh,
Um,
you're welcome.
but it's
And
incredible to me also just from your experiences uh, because of that, that you were meant to speak. And there's that theme of having lost your voice. And I actually need to sit my butt down and write my book because it is about I was elective mute and then I became an actor and a voice actor and then I lost my voice and then I found my voice again. And it's interesting how when spirit wants you to speak, you speak.
that's
And
right.
that's so awesome. Yeah.
So after a long time, I realized that spirit gave me this voice because people listen to it.
Yeah.
They pay attention. It's a unique. It's different.
Yeah.
And so when I stand up in front of an audience, it it just draws them in. I don't know
Yeah.
why,
Yeah.
but but it was kind of a long process, many years, and of course I was going to college at the time, and then later working, um, and but it got better and better every year. It would get a little
Yeah.
better, and eventually it got to the point where I could feel comfortable speaking in front of
Amazing.
groups of people. Um, but that second purpose was to talk to people, to to be out there and communicate with people about this near death experience. It had been 20 years. I tried to talk about it when I first got home, and people gave me funny looks like,
Yeah.
wow, that's really weird, Bill. But what about combat? What was it like to be in
Mhm.
combat? They didn't mind hearing about all that kind of stuff. The blood, the guts, and the glory, of which there was no glory.
Right.
And
Yes.
and but they didn't want to hear about the near death experience. They didn't want to hear about it. It really kind of put them off. So I just stopped talking about it. And when I was in college, there was a woman that ran this lunchroom. It was just a bunch of vending machines with tables in the room, and she just made change for everybody. But I was sitting eating my lunch one day, and she came over and said to me, "Someday you're going to talk about all this." And I thought, "How do you know? You don't even know who I am. Well, how do you
Right.
know about all this?" And she kind of gave me some hope that things would work out. But I went on, and I got my job and went to work for the VA. And I was uh, I was in the library in Parkland, Washington, one day. I don't even remember what I was doing in there, and I saw uh, this poster. Oh well, I got to go back. When I was in graduate school, um, my professor, I was taking a class called Confrontations with Living and Dying, and I thought, oh, this is going to be good. And um, the first night, the professor said, get into small groups and talk about your most profound experience with death. So I thought, well, do I or do I not tell the story? And I did. I told the story, and people were in awe. And um, the professor had been listening, and he came to me and he said, what you have is a near death experience. You had a near death experience. And that was the first time I heard that term. I had never heard that term before. I'd heard about out of body and astral projection and different things like that, but I never heard the term near death experience. And he said, though, there's somebody you need to call. She runs this group in Seattle. Her name is Kimberly Clark Sharp, and you need to talk to her. And I said, yeah, okay, right, like a typical guy, yeah, right, yeah, I'll do it, and put it out of mind. And so it's about a year later, and I'm in this library, and there's a poster on the wall that says International Association of Near Death Studies meets here Saturday. And I thought, this is what my professor was talking about. This is the thing. So I thought, okay, I think I'll go. I think I'll go see what it's about. So because I was beginning to learn that the spirit always puts things in your path, but you have to make the decision. You have to decide whether or not to accept it.
Yeah.
So I went to the meeting. There were like 6 people there in the meeting. Um, Kimberly Clark Sharp was not there at this meeting. In fact, this was not her group at all. Anyway, being the new guy, of course, I had to tell my story. And I told my story, and the leader of the group said, there's somebody you need to meet. Her name is Kimberly Clark Sharp in Seattle, and we're going up there next week. You can go with us and meet her. So I said, okay, I can do that. So
Spirit
the
wasn't
next,
gonna let this go.
it wasn't going to let go. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to ride with this and see where it goes. So the next week we go up there, and, this is like I had told this story once in class and once at this group. That's all I'd ever told the whole story before in my life. And And this was 20 years after the fact. So um, we're in Seattle, and they take me over, and I meet Kimberly, and we chit chat and hit it off right away. Um, and she says, "Well, do you want to talk today?" And I said, "No." I said, I'd rather just sit and kind of watch and see what you do and listen. So I'm sitting there, and they start the meeting and go through all their housekeeping stuff. And Kimberly says, "We have somebody new here who I want to call up to speak." She says, "Bill Vandenbush, come up here."
Wow.
And I thought, what did I say? I said, I don't want to talk. And, but, I did anyway. I went up and I told my story, and uh, it was just magic after that. I was speaking at conferences, I was speaking at on television, I was appearing on all kinds of TV shows, radio shows, newspaper and magazines were writing stories about me,
Talk to the people,
and
Bill.
I was talking to the people,
Yeah.
and so I was still working, and I this was about 8 or 9 years went by, and I was still working, and I was still appearing on TV and conferences and radio, and we didn't have podcasts back then, but
Yeah.
uh, we barely had computers. That's how
I
long
know.
ago it was.
Yeah.
But so everybody kept saying, "You got to write a book." And I thought, I don't want to write a book. I'm not a very good writer. In fact, when I was in school, all through college, grad school, I always got dinged on my writing. It was just not very good, especially my grammar was really bad. So I thought, well, I don't really want to write a book. But I kept hearing it over and over and over. You got to write the book. So I thought, okay, I'll do this. And um, I started writing, and it was just really difficult. I would get through a couple of pages, and it was my same crappy writing from college. And I thought, I have to learn to write. So I started talking to people about writing, reading books about writing, um, and getting people to critique and edit my writing. And then a friend of mine said, "Well, if it's easier for you, you can just dictate this onto tape." We had tape back then. and and then I'll type it up for you, and then you have a typewritten thing. So um, I said, "Yeah, that sounds good. Then I can kind of see it all written up like that." So I got I got the tape recorder, and I sat down, and I was sitting in my office, and I started talking and telling the tape recorder my story. And I thought, yeah, this ought to make a good book. This is, a lot of material. And so I gave it to this lady, and she typed it all up. And it was 10 pages.
Yeah.
And I thought, all that? And it was only 10
Yeah.
pages. Um, so anyway, uh, I thought, okay, I've got to learn more here. So I started writing. I learned to type a little better, got a word processor, and wrote this book and had people look at it and read it. And uh, I thought, well, okay, now it's all written. I've got it written. I've gone through this process. Took me a couple of years. Now I got to get it published. And I I started sending out letters to publishers and agents and all kinds of things. And of course, like everybody else, I got, tons of rejection letters. And I was just about to give up. And a friend of mine who I'd given a copy of my manuscript to and asked him to read it and to critique it and let me know. I um, I heard back from him, and he says, "I really like your manuscript, and I'll be happy to tell you what I think about it and what I think needs to be changed, but I don't want to give it back to you. I want to keep it because I want to read it over and over." I
Wow.
thought, well, this is a good sign. But a week later, he calls me up and he says, I've read your manuscript now a couple of times. And he said, would you mind if I shared it with a friend of mine who's a publisher? I said, well, of course not. He said, well, good, because I did. And they want to publish your book.
Oh, that's so great.
And so, but I had to rewrite it again. It was, like most authors, I wasn't happy with it and I had to redo it. And probably the biggest help in that process um, was my wife, Shannon, who we weren't married at the time, but she read my manuscript and gave me feedback. And most of all, she gave me encouragement to just kind of keep moving forward. And we had met actually a couple years before that, and had just been friends, and uh, and we had maintained this friendship, and we used to meet for dinner every once in a while, and she'd talk to me on the phone every once in a while, actually about once a week,
That's pretty
and
regular.
um, uh, finally we decided that maybe there was
You loved each
more to
other.
all of this, yes. And so
Yeah.
uh, we got married, and life has been wonderful ever since. So
Oh, that
I
is so
couldn't
beautiful.
couldn't ask for a better spouse. And I think that the spirit brought her to me. I think it brought her to me at the time when I needed some help with my book. And she helped me in writing that. And then later, when we rewrote the book, the second edition, she was a big help with that and actually wrote a chapter herself. Um, and so it's kind of been a joint venture all along.
Yeah.
Um, but I did, not long after we were married, I had another near death experience. I'm just going to tell this one quickly.
Yeah, I was gonna say you
Um,
don't I was gonna ask you about it because I wanna know why you I mean, not why you had it, but I guess, yeah, why you had it because what was left unsaid and how what still needed to be learned.
oh, there's a ton that needs to be learned,
Yeah, of course.
even now. But um, I got very ill, and I'd done something stupid. We went out to film a show. It was outdoors. It was raining, and I didn't take a jacket. And this is the Pacific Northwest. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
get warm here.
No.
So uh, about a week later, I end up in the hospital. I've got pneumonia and a couple of other problems. And Shannon and I are at the hospital, and she says, I'm going to go home and leave you here. She'd been with me for a day or so. And said, then I'll come back the next day. And I said, okay. So I'm there by myself. And the next thing I know, I wake up a week later. I'm at the University of Washington Hospital, which was very far from the hospital I started at. And I was told that I had gone into respiratory arrest and had been in a coma during this time. And this, I thought, well, that's what this was all about. This, because I thought at first I kind of thought it was a dream, but I thought it's too real to be a dream. It's too vivid. It's more like a near-death experience. And what it was, it began by me flying through. I went through the dark tunnel into the white light and just kind of whizzed right through that. And then I was flying through the universe. And I was just in awe of this universe, which is huge. I mean, it's so much bigger than anyone ever imagined. And but I seemed to be able to go wherever I wanted in that universe just by thinking about it. I was able to kind of transport there very quickly. I mean, I was going millions, if not billions, of light years in a matter of moments. And I thought, this is wonderful. And it was just teeming with life. There was so much life out there. It was like being in the ocean with fish all around you. It was that kind of feeling with that much life, that much energy in it. And I had a guide. My spirit guide was there with me and started to talk to me after I kind of acclimated to this and told me, you can do whatever you want here. You can even talk to people that you want to talk to. And I thought about it. And the one person I've admired throughout my life was Leonardo da Vinci. And I said, I want to talk to Leonardo da Vinci.
Good one.
And the spirit said, well, you can't actually talk to da Vinci, he's dead. But you can talk to the spirit that inhabited da Vinci's body. And that spirit will have some information about da Vinci. So I went, and I'm not going to tell you everything because I want you to read the book.
Yes, definitely.
But I talked to the spirit, and it was just the most amazing thing. And after I was done talking to the spirit, actually right about the end of my conversation, during the time that I was up there in the universe, every once in a while I would see this red light and it would draw me to it. And my wife Shannon is a Reiki master, and I learned later that she was doing Reiki at these times, and that was drawing me back
Oh, wow.
to her. And so I see the red light and I'm drawn back to the red light. But this time I go through the red light and I can see myself lying in the bed with tubes coming out of me all over. I see Shannon standing at the foot of the bed. I see the nurses and the doctors, and they're starting to take the trach tube and all the breathing apparatus off of me. And it was at that moment I realized I can make a choice right now. I can stay here in the universe and live my afterlife, or I can go back there and finish my life back on Earth. Well, back a number of years ago, I promised Shannon that I would live to be about 81 or 2, because then we would have been married like 25 years, and that would be our anniversary. So I told her I would live to that anniversary. I promised her I would. So I thought, okay, I've got to keep my promise. And I chose to go back. And I realized that this was my choice. I had a choice. Go back or stay. Now, I don't think everybody gets a choice.
I was going to ask you that.
But I was very fortunate that I did.
Yeah.
And So I went back and I got healthier again, and I've had a few more bouts of illness and struggles, but for the most part, I'm fairly healthy, and I plan to make it to that 25th wedding anniversary. So
What a great
it's
anniversary gift.
it's my goal.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, that is the most beautiful thing. You know, I know it, I can imagine it hasn't been easy going through all of that physical trauma, even the emotional trauma, although I know that you have a beautiful attitude and you haven't lost your softness. I can tell just by spending time with you that you're just such a gentle, kind, loving soul.
I try.
Yeah, I know that can be really difficult when you've seen so much terror in your life and experienced so much physical pain and discomfort. I would love to know, having gone through all of this, do you have any insight? I mean, no one can really know for sure, but do you have any insight about why certain people are chosen to have these experiences or allowed these experiences? Um, and is it part of their soul path from the beginning? Is it something that happens and they say, due to free will? What are your thoughts on why this happens to some people? I've always sort of been just from speaking with lots of people in the IONS community and
Yeah.
outside of the IONS community, but that it seems as if, in a sense, their soul's purpose was to come here and be either a light worker or at least speak to the people, spread the message, be a medium, whatever their healing modality might be. I just wonder, yeah, you can kind of riff on that any way you like.
Well, I think that um, I don't think there's anything special. I think it's just that you have to be open to it,
Yeah.
and that some people are more open. Um, their vibrations, their frequencies are more in tune with their spirit from the universe, and I think we all have that energy. So we all have that ability. Although I'm beginning to think that there are people without a soul, without a spirit that do exist. And there's no chance for them to ever have that experience just because they don't have a soul. They don't have a spirit. They're not connected to the energy of the universe,
Mhm.
and that's sad. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a lot of people. I think it's just, um, you know, uh, a relative handful, maybe a million or so.
Yeah, which is a lot, but
Yeah,
small
but it's,
comparatively.
yeah, I mean, we have hundreds of millions of people in this
Yeah.
world. And, but if we are connected to that, um, I think it takes some practice, but I think anybody can make that connection.
Yeah.
I've over the years have helped some people to make that connection. Um, and I believe that, almost anybody can. We all share that energy. Every living thing shares that energy. And when we can learn to love all living things, you don't have to like everything, but
Yeah.
it's important to love everything, especially everybody. You don't have to like everybody,
Yeah.
but you need to love everybody.
Mhm.
And that may sound contradictory, but love is more of an energy thing. Actually, love is something that you give, not something you get.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to grasp sometimes, too, that concept of giving love versus getting love. But when we learn to do that, when we learn to give love and care about other people, it brings us closer to that spirit, to that energy of the universe. Um,
That's yeah.
so it's doable, but maybe not everybody can do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I always think I've always believed that and I don't know the truth, but the way I've always seen it is I've always thought of it, and I've said this before, that our souls are just lights from the, from this other realm. And
Yeah.
my theory was always that it's about what bodies we're put into, and some bodies are defective in that way, where people are sociopaths because of the size of their brain and the way that their brain is structured. So the antenna's broken kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I always look at it, and that's my way of looking at it, is that I think we're all born pure light, except that we get put into these bodies where we are corrupted by what we're looking through,
Yeah.
the eyes we're looking through, and the brain that we're thinking through. And that's where things get corrupted. And I always look at it as, people say, well, why would God allow this to happen? God doesn't allow this to happen as much as we all have free will. And some people, I think, without the dark, we, the light
I
isn't the
yeah.
contrast of there needs to be dark
We
to
try to
illuminate the light.
we try to personify God.
Yeah.
God is not a person.
Yep. Exactly.
God is the energy of the universe.
Yep.
Now, I have questions about that because I don't know if there's a source of that
Right.
energy or it just exists. It just is.
Right.
Um, but we'll learn
We'll learn.
eventually.
We'll know. The
We'll
other night,
figure it out.
yeah, the other night at dinner, my dad, my brother-in-law, my sister, the kids, they're visiting, and we're at my parents' house, and we're talking about the NASA developments. Um, and my dad, I found out, is not an atheist. I said that on the program, I guess. My mom's like, he's not. He's surprised you think that. He's more of a deist, I guess. So what he had said though was, but then it begs the question, let's go back. Okay, the Big Bang. Let's go back even farther. The universe is, and I was like, the universe is always expanding. And then we always go back to, but where did that come from? And we all uh,
Sure. What
agree
if
that,
it has no source?
yeah, like, where did God, the source, come from?
Yeah. So
How did something come from nothing? It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I try in my book, I try to talk about the difference between material being and energy being. And that basically the energy is all pervasive. It's everywhere. It exists everywhere all at once. And the material being is the planets, the people, all the material things that we experience. But as we're finding out right now, with this new telescope in space, there are billions of planets, billions of galaxies, maybe. You know, there's got to be more people and there's got to be more of this energy. It's not just us, it's not just here, it's universal.
That's what we were talking about. And I said, and that solidifies I'm the most spiritual of the whole family, other than my mom, but I'm still the most. I said, and that right there is why I believe we are living in a matrix, and this is all a simulation.
Yeah,
That was our dinner conversation. Was there is so much it is the mystery. My mom always told me when I was younger, she said, I don't think we can't explain God, and she's not religious either, but we can't explain God or what happens when we die or what's really going on here, because it just doesn't fit into our earthly paradigm. She said,
right.
I think it's something that, and that always stuck with me. Now I'm seeing that more and more, that as my near death experience friends have said, there is no time on the other side. Everything's happening at the same time and not at all, and all together and in layers and in different dimensions. And then you realize there's just no way for our brains to comprehend that. It's just totally out of our paradigm.
Yes.
So, in summation, even though I could listen to you speak, I won't put you through that. I could listen to you speak for 10 more hours. I wish to release you back into your life. What is the most important thing that you want people to know?
I think the most important thing is just to love each other, care about each other. You know, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
You know, just give each other a break every once in a while.
That's beautiful. Thank you. It's simple and it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. That's pretty much what every near death experiencer says. It's what I say having I'm an empath and when I tell people at the end of my podcast episodes, sometimes I'll say I love you. Do I know who's listening? I'm not saying I like every single one of you. I don't know all of you. What I'm saying is I deeply, truly love every single one of you because you are me and I am you. And that's it. It's the namaste. The light in me sees the light in you. We are all one. And I love you as I love me. And I love me as I love you.
Awesome. That's beautiful.
So thank you for being the person that you are, the light you are in this world. We need this.
Well,
We
thank you.
really need people like you out there. And just it has been such an honor and a pleasure to meet you, to speak with you, to share in this experience with you. And th- uh, yeah, thank you doesn't even sum it up. It's just the feeling again of oneness and namaste.
Namaste.